let's see what Google has to say on the issue of brainstorming.
So we have this page that talks about an individual business, and it has information like, the name and the phone number and the address. And we're looking to try and come up with, how can we better show all of this data that we have? Okay, so what can we do better?
I really would like to redo the structured data UI, and I'm not really sure how, but it's just so unreadable right now.
I think we should make it more structured. Really.
So what structured data do we have?
Business hours.
Cross streets, cuisine.
It looks like we have neighborhood data. Are we doing anything?
Occasionally neighborhood data.
There's also data that we could infer, like nearby businesses.
Right. Like one of the things that currently on our little tiny map, which is pretty tiny, we could show other restaurants.
When you want to see nearby businesses, you want to see I can recognize this place because it's between the pawnbroker and the locksmith.
Well, and also aside from being a landmark, it's also sort of a good other thing to do. If you're going out to dinner, maybe you want to, you notice the bookstore's there. Hey, I'm meeting my friend. I'm half an hour early. I'll go hang out in the bookstore.
Well, so it depends what you want. Do you want to just help yourself locate it, or do you want to sort of, I found a hotel and now I want to figure out where I go out to eat tonight, so I'm going to show nearby restaurants.
But if I'm searching for a plumber, right, I don't really care what's nearby my plumber.
Right. Yeah. Obviously with plumbers you never do, right? But
well, maybe if I'm searching for a plumber, I want nearby lawyers, so I can sue my landlord.
If only we could infer what kind of a person they were, or their interests.
Right. So one of the problems with this data is we don't have good coverage of it everywhere. So, right. So one of the things that we have to deal with these UIs is we have to deal with the fact that we might not have it.
So here's a Web 2.0 type idea, which is, how right now they're using very pastel shade for data they're not sure of, and really dark shades for data they're sure of. And same with size as an indicator.
We'll put it in size 12 font, size 8 font, depending on how sure we are.
I'm sure the users would really love that experience.
You've just seen the example of Google, right? Now, brainstorming is a group-based activity. It's a technique. It's a technique where a particular environment is created, an unstructured environment. It's an environment where there are people from different functions. There are people from different levels of the company who are all brought together to discuss a particular topic. It's a broad topic, and one of the very distinctive features of brainstorming is that anybody can come up with any idea. There will be no censoring of any ideas. There will be no judgment expressed on any ideas. There will be no evaluation of any ideas. The whole purpose of brainstorming is that people come up with ideas, right? The idea which one person comes up with may spark off another idea in another person. Possibly the first idea is an impractical idea, but that idea has in turn sparked off another idea from another person, which is a very useful idea. This is the whole purpose of brainstorming. Generate ideas, right? Generate ideas in an environment, in an atmosphere where there is no evaluation. The atmosphere is not judgmental. It's purely informal. It's purely idea generating. Now, another kind of group, another kind of formal group is quality circle. Now, this is the third kind of formal group that we are looking at. We looked at teams, we looked at brainstorming groups, and now we are looking at quality circles. What is this concept of quality circle? This really started off a long time back in Japan, you know, when Japan was re-industrializing itself after all the damage caused by the Second World War. At that point in time, Japanese managers came up with this idea of constituting quality circles, right? They said that the only way for us to leapfrog, right, and move rapidly ahead is to ensure the involvement of the largest number of people in decision making. The typical way in which organizations function, which organizations used to function in those days, was a hierarchical way of functioning. Now, quality circle is completely different from a hierarchical way of functioning, because a quality circle brings together people from different levels, people from related departments but of different levels, right? And they discuss the issue of quality control. Sometimes very original ideas come up in quality circles. For instance, sometimes what happens is that it occurs to people that the quality process, right, relates not merely to the final inspection, but it relates equally to the raw material inspection, which is done by an entirely different set of people. But if the inspection at the raw material level, at the level of components, is very strict, right, then the company can ensure that the necessity for inspecting 100% at the finished goods stage is not required, and this would mean a huge saving in cost. Okay, so quality circles is the third kind of group, third kind of formal group. The fourth kind of formal group is what's called a T group. These are training groups. Okay, now these T groups are constituted to train people in group dynamics. The fact of the matter is that an individual, when he is left alone, behaves in a certain way. The same individual in a collection of people behaves in a different way. This is group dynamics. The group induces behavior of a person to be different from what it would be if he were alone. It's important that each person who needs to work in a team, any kind of team, each person needs to know how his behavior is being altered by the presence of other people. Sometimes the behavior is altered in positive ways. Sometimes it's altered in negative ways. For instance, there are some people who, left to themselves, would be very unobservant, right? They are left to themselves, they would be very unobservant about happenings. However, when they are part of a group of people, there is a certain element of formality, and therefore they become they become persons who observe what is happening in the background. So the nature of their behavior changes in a positive manner. On the other hand, there are some people who, when they are in a group, try and dominate, right? Now, left to themselves as individuals, they are very pleasant people, very pleasant, very nice people. But when you put them into a group, because of this tendency to try and dominate the group, the person is seen as being a very offensive individual, right? Now, these kinds of people who react positively in groups or negatively in groups need to understand how their behavior is being influenced by a group, by the formation of a group. This is what group dynamics is all about, and it's really for people to understand group dynamics, for people to work better with others. It's for this purpose that T groups are formed.